Our second topic of the week is presented by Stiefel and the Founders Group, and it is very simple. Duke is the best team in the Atlantic Coast Conference through the regular season. They are the number one seed this week here in Charlotte. Guys, can anybody take down the Blue Devils? Could Clemson get their first ever championship? Could Louisville under first-year head coach Pat Kelsey? Kerry Keating, we'll start off with you.
Well, I think the easy answer to say probably not, but the fact that Clemson has already beaten Duke and the fact that Clemson has two players returning at the top of their roster that made a deep NCAA tournament run last year, they seem to be primed heading into the ACC tournament for a chance to win that aforementioned first elusive ACC tournament, let alone get a better seed, maybe even climb up into the top four seeds if they're able to at least get to the final. You know, Victor Lockton is now averaging 17 points over the last four games. And as a five-man who can stretch the floor, he's presenting some issues for teams that can play against them and have to worry about, Ian Shefflin, obviously Chase Hunter. They've quietly put together a season, and quietly I say only outside these confines. I think we've been well aware of the potential of what Clemson can do. It kind of goes to show you, and it's been amazing to talk to you guys about the ACC, about our local schools for the last couple of months, and then have these conversations with folks that are in the Big Ten, that are certainly in the West Coast, whatever conference they happen to be in. There's no conferences there anymore. They all seem to be everywhere else, even up in the Big East. And they kind of make mention like, I don't know about Clemson. And I'm kind of like, guys, you don't know about Clemson. Like all of a sudden, Clemson's become the soup du jour, right? Their metrics lined up. We mentioned them as part of a group of 10 whose metrics at the time present themselves as potential national championship winners because that's where they've typically come from, 23 of the last 24. And they're going to be a trendy pick come the Selection Sunday pundits and the post-game shows. If there's ever a year where the league isn't strong enough for them to at least go unscathed into the finals, and obviously to have to get by Louisville, I think this is the year. The only problem is that Duke, and John Shire actually referenced this in his post-game press conference, had a sliver of time where they were the hunter and not the hunted. And that's a problem if you're trying to beat Duke now, because now they've figured out how to go in the most, the toughest environment that they're going to go into at Carolina at the end of the year, for all the emotion that goes into it, for all the potential desperation that Carolina needed. They win that game. They're in the tournament. I think no problem. Now, all of a sudden, they came out, showed their depth, had, I think, 5 different guys hit threes, shot 50%. Cooper Flagg's in foul trouble, still blocks 4 shots in the second half. They don't isolate to go against them. It's like, Duke may be bulletproof. Duke actually may be bulletproof. I know David's favorite stat is still intact, that Cooper Flagg, even though it's coming a little close on 2 of the categories, leads the Blue Devils in the 5 major categories. And it's obviously clear he's got the ACC Player of the Year locked up. Now it's between him and Johnny Broome between National Player of the Year. But I think that game firmly established, like even in his trials and tribulations to try to figure out how to stay out of foul trouble, not commit ticky-tack fouls, and kind of show his youth a little bit, he comes back in the second half and shows his maturity. I don't know if Duke can be beat. I don't know if Duke can be beat before the 3rd weekend in March. It's going to be very, very difficult, barring any major collapse, potential injury, or anything of that nature, and the weakness that is the ACC this year, to overcome them not winning the double dip, the regular season and the postseason. If there's any team that can do it, it's Clemson. I know Louisville will try to make a case for that. I just don't know if they've shown that type of strength, and obviously didn't have that type of success against Duke during the regular season. Personally, I'm looking forward to, wish we could just fast forward to the finals and go right to Duke and Clemson and just get all the rest of it out of the way and let them put them out of their misery. Let them go start working on the transfer portal, because that's what's coming up anyway. But I think Clemson, yes. I think Clemson, they're not afraid of the task. They've won already. They have the leadership. They have the postseason experience. And they have that win, even though it was in Littlejohn, under their belt. So they have some factors going in that'll give them a little bit more confidence to see if they can pull off and get that first ACC tournament championship.
This is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot on my shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for greatness, no settling. Kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Taking no else, yeah, I gotta win. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Who running the game now? Foot on the gas, can slow down. No, my team, we holding it down. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.
Yeah, Mike, you guys know that I like to occasionally dive into my ACC encyclopedia, so let me hit you with my favorite fun fact of today's show, and then I'll answer who I think can give Duke the best game, if not beat the Blue Devils in Charlotte. One fun fact, by the way, before I get to my favorite one, it is Charlotte, North Carolina. I mean, we know this because we live in the Carolinas, but not everybody beyond our immediate listening area and viewing area knows this. Charlotte, North Carolina is so close to the South Carolina border that it is a shorter drive to Clemson, South Carolina, from that arena, the Spectrum Center, than it is to Durham, North Carolina, where Duke University is located. So if it came down to that matchup on Saturday night, Coach Keating, and I've been to 30-plus straight ACC tournaments, I'm telling you that would be fantastic because Clemson's never won one, because both fan bases have huge amounts of alumni who live within an easy drive of Charlotte, North Carolina, if it came down to that big ticket on a Saturday night. But here's my favorite fun fact. In the modern era, so 1980 forward, this Duke team, and this underlines how hard they are to beat, as Coach Keating just described, but this Duke team is one of the 4 best ACC regular season dominant champions by margin of victory. 3 of the previous 4 who fit that description made it all the way to the NCAA title game. That's a hell of a fun fact, right? Let me restate that. So of the 5, I'll give you the schools. 1999 Duke beat their ACC opponents by an average of 24 points. That is the most in the history of this 72-year-old league. That Duke team went to the national title game, lost to UConn, and those 99 Blue Devils of Mike Krzyzewski are considered one of the better teams ever to fall short of an NCAA title. This Duke team is second. They beat their average margin of victory this year was 22 points. That's second most ever. We don't know how their postseason's going to go, but it's hard not to be optimistic, right? Next on that list is 2001 Duke. They beat their ACC opponents by an average of 18 points a game. They won the national championship. That was Jay Williams, Shane Battier, and that crew for Coach K. 2002 Duke crushed their ACC opponents by about the same amount, 18 or so points. They didn't win it all that year, but they did make the Sweet 16. And I'd have to double check. I think they won the ACC tournament that year. 2005 Carolina is also on that list. Those Tar Heels, of course, won the national championship under Roy Williams. That was the Sean May, Jawad Williams, and crew from 2005, the early part of Roy Williams' tenure. They beat their ACC opponents by about 17 points, but that's an incredible track record. In other words, 3 of the 4 teams that fit this description before this year's Blue Devils ended up in the national title game, and most of them won the ACC tournament along the way. Now, all that said, and we've been pounding this drum about how good Duke is for months now, that part is obvious. I think to have a chance to beat Duke, it really helps to be able to be comfortable with a slow tempo, right? I mean, this is an old adage. If you're not as good as your opponent, the fewer the possessions, the better, right? It gives them less time, fewer possessions to show how much better than you they are. Well, a team like Carolina, for example, is the fastest or one of the fastest tempo teams in the ACC. So they're not going to be comfortable really trying to slow it down. You know who the slowest teams are in the ACC are? Virginia and Clemson. So the Tigers are incredibly comfortable playing at a slower pace. That's their familiar pace under Brad Brownell. So that's one of the reasons I share Coach Keating's opinion that if anybody's going to beat Duke, the team with the best chance is these Clemson Tigers. What else helps? You got to be big, man. Like somebody's got to guard 6'9" and athletic Cooper Flagg. but then somebody else has to guard 7'2" Common Malawach. And they have more size coming off the bench. Clemson has that size. Victor Locken's a legit 7-footer. Ian Shefflin's a legit, not quite, but almost 7-footer. And there are other guys, even Chauncey Wiggins, with the long wingspan at 6'9" or whatever he's listed. That's a lot of height, and Carolina certainly doesn't have that kind of height this year. Louisville has a couple of 6'10" guys, but I wouldn't call that a super big team. And Louisville, more like the Tar Heels, likes to run. It doesn't mean you can't slow it down out of necessity, but it means your players haven't been wired to try to play that way, and then you might have to ask them to try to play that way to upset Duke. You don't have to ask Clemson to change anything. Chase Hunter can do what he does, just like he did in their victory over the Blue Devils. Locken can do his thing. Shefflin can do his thing. Jaden Zachary's a brilliant perimeter defender. I mean, this Clemson team is really, really legit. I actually think the team with the second best chance of beating Duke would be the Tar Heels. I don't think that half of the bracket, I don't think Wake is a good matchup for Duke because the Deacs just don't have enough handlers. They just don't have enough confidence at point guard with Tyler Johnson. He's gotten a little better, but I don't think you're going to beat Duke if point guard is the weakest link in your starting lineup. I just don't think it's going to happen for the Deacs if it comes to that matchup. I think Carolina would have a chance, just like they at least scared Duke a little in that game at the Smith Center, and they would be playing for their lives, the postseason lives, as would the Demon Deacons. But the bottom line answer is we don't have to wonder. We saw Clemson beat Duke. Yes, it was at Little John, but they have the talent, the experience, the coaching, and who knows if they would have, maybe as many fans there and probably more rooting for Clemson if it came to a Clemson-Duke finale, because you know what the neutral fans usually do, and they're going to adopt the underdog. And in this case, the underdog would be a school that's been an ACC member since the day the league was created in 1953 and is still seeking its first ring. So however royal blue the fans might look, all those neutral fans are going to be rooting for those Clemson Tigers, again, if it comes to that. And frankly, I hope it does.
NC Port, raising the bacon, raising the bar.